Well, hello, you freedom-loving creature, you. Imagine meeting you right here, right now. I imagined it. And so here we are. But what is it to be embodied in freedom? If you feel inspired, I feel inspired to have a conversation on that right now. One that I imagine will enhance not only our collective understanding of what it is to be free, but also one that will assist us each individually in tapping into our expression of freedom here and now. Sounds pretty fun to me. I'm Danielle Lynn. We've had conversations before. I know this. And right now, in today's conversation, our exploration of freedom, I imagine, is one that you can listen to with your conscious mind, but there may be parts in this conversation where you tune in and it might be helpful to listen, let's say, with your heart. Now, if you're a logical kind of person and you hear that, I want to invite you to do an experiment. Because I understand that there's a lot of perspectives out there that sometimes feel 3 or 10 steps disconnected from this current reality we're in. But what I'm experiencing as important right now, if you want to call it important, is our ability to be curious about the various ways that we can both communicate and receive information. We already know there's more than one way to communicate. Right now we're using language, we're using visuals, right? And we're also, well, let's just say we're using other ways to communicate as well. And we can communicate through things like music and through media. There's so many ways that we can. So if there are already so many ways that we are currently aware of to communicate, I would invite the possibility that what if there are more? More that we haven't quite tapped into the intricacies of at this current moment in time, but that we're just coming to the brink of. And so today's conversation is in part an exploration on freedom, and it's also an invitation for us to be a little experimental with how we communicate in multiple ways. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I often invite us to connect together in the videos when we both feel inspired. And what I mean by that is I invite people to only watch the video, to only click on the video, if they feel the call to, like a pull, a draw towards a video. And sometimes you might see a video and you won't feel called to watch it at that time, or you might watch it a little bit and go, not for me right now. And my theory, if you would like to call it that, the experiment we're playing with is, what if we listened to each of our guidance, each of our inner guidance, on when, where, and how to do something in the moment it arises? And should we choose to trust that, would we experience something that we call precision timing, that we call precision synchronicity? And in this case, watching something at just the right moment for it to reach you. Maybe the video you click on, even though thousands of people have watched it, it reaches you at a moment in time that's relevant and significant for you. It has messages, it has ideas, it has visuals that are significant for you. And what we're describing, what we're experiencing, what we're embodying together is one example of the beyond time-space nature of this reality. And what happens when you listen to the stirrings of your inner voice and of your inner heart. Now, for the skeptics here in our channel, something I'll offer to that perspective is at this current juncture in reality, we have scientific evidence that the placebo effect has a physical correlation. In other words, the power of the mind believing something is true appears to impact the appearance of it in reality. And there's something to that. And so even if we just play with that perspective for a moment, even if we just play with the perspective that things are as true as we genuinely perceive them to be, then why not an across time and space conversation amongst me and you and me and all of us happening on YouTube right now in a forest, you being where you are right now? Fun, right? From my perspective anyway. And if you like, I'll invite you, if this resonates with you, I'll invite you at this moment to, and I'll do this with you, we'll put our hands over our heart. Take a few breaths in. Those are some good breaths. All right. One more. And I'll say this, and you can say this if you want, or say it your way. I am choosing to connect with and embody my resonant field of synchronicity, auspiciously connecting beyond time and space to my resonant people, my resonant community, my resonant self. I notice that I am more and more clearly able to hear, understand, and resonantly act on the stirrings of my true inner voice. And I'm so curious and intrigued about the steps and the inspirations that I will connect with in each moment. Talk about freedom. Talk about freedom and the ability to be so tapped in to your inner knowing, your inner resonance, your inner voice and understanding, that at any given moment you can hear, receive, make choices and live them. I find that when this becomes a natural point of our life, it's not really a sequence. It's all happening instantaneously. It's the same as the way we breathe, is the way we move, is the way we dance, is the way we think, is the way we exist in this reality. I have a mudra for us today. What's a mudra? Well, you see me doing these things, right? This is a cool one. I like this one. I don't know if that's actually a mudra. It's more of it's a guy. So you've seen me do mudras before. It's the movements of the hand. My partner describes them as yoga for the hand. I may be teaching more about mudras here in this year. I may be talking about them more in the lab. If you haven't checked it out, you can find a link in my description for the Self-Alchemy Lab. Mudras, in this case, they are connecting us with the physical circuitry of the body through the hands. The hands and the feet have connection points to all the points in our body. There's certain reflexologies that study this. And when we, let's just say, configure the hands in certain ways, it's almost like completing a circuitry. You can do this just with your body itself. You hunched over like this. So if you want, you can feel what's it like to be hunched over and the feeling you have. I consider this a protective stance. So it's kind of protective. It's almost like having a shell. Now, back, shoulders back, spine up, chest open. This is more of a power stance, if you'd like to call it that. Not better than one or the other, but you can feel the difference in energy. Now, we can enact some of those differences through how we configure the hands together, individually. Okay? And so, if you like, today I'm actually going to teach us a mudra. This is a mudra for freedom. So I'm going to credit Richard Rudd for this. Not that he invented the mudra, but that I first learned it from him. And I'll have a link in the description if you would like to explore more about that. So this mudra right here is the mudra for freedom. Here's what we do if you'd like to do the mudra. You curl these 3 fingers towards the palm. So it's almost like you're making that L shape, or you're holding your fingers like this for a moment, right? Fold your thumb across the fingers. Okay, now it's almost like you're pointing like this. And then hold your hands sort of like this in front of you. Okay. Now imagine, I like to imagine that this is almost like a dragon's teeth. So imagine like your arms were like the jaws, the bottom jaws of the dragon's teeth right here. And I would almost imagine these as blades. Your fingers are like blades. And they are like incisors that cut any energetic cords that are complete to be cut. And so when you're envisioning, so you hold it like this. Now go into this gently, please, if you will. Because when you place your intention here, you may be surprised at the energy you feel. So you hold your fingers like this and breathe a bit. You might notice energy in your fingers and hand. You might notice your energy in different parts of your body. And then if you feel inspired, I sometimes like to imagine these are like jaws, and I picture just threads of energy that are complete, and I cut them. Freedom. As though I am untethering rusted chains that once held me down. And you can just be in this pose and breathe and contemplate. Hold the image of freedom in your heart. Remember we were talking about the heart? Hold the image of freedom in your heart and simply be here and feel what it is. Breathe on that. This is like an active meditation. It's not a meditation of the mind. It is your body in the symbolic gesture of freedom. Now, if you like, you can play with your own symbols of what it is to be free, right? Maybe you make wings, freedom. Maybe you make a gesture like this, freedom. This is up to you to create, if you like. We can be playful with these things. Freedom would imply constraint. In order for freedom to exist, the idea of constraint would have to exist. So the step beyond that could be seen as simply being. Being as you are without resistance or insistence on what that means is its own kind of freedom, because it neither recognizes the idea of freedom or constraint. You are simply being. I learned this in certain ways from the trees. The trees, they be. And even when there is perceived constraints, I have found nature, plants, they simply find a way. How is that? Nature finds a way. And they grow around, they grow through, they grow under, they simply be. Without judging themselves, because they don't have this concept of judging themselves. They are simply being. That is my experience anyway. When I have connected with trees, the idea of judging oneself is not something that currently translates to tree. How do we integrate this in your current life? Because I do find that that's a valid question. You are, after all, living your life right now. The playfulness that I will invite you to consider is that any place that you feel constricted contains your portal for freedom. I'll say that again. Any place you feel constricted contains your portal for freedom. It's not the places that you think you want to be at that contain your freedom. It's right here, right now, at any specific place that you feel constrained. And what I have found for myself is by transmuting what I was once pushing away into completely embracing and accepting it, creates this sort of flip it around energy. It creates like this is transmutation, you see. Because it's the same energy. We're not getting rid of the energy. It's just taking a new shape, a new form. Not through a force of change, but through a complete acceptance of it is as it is at its state. The release of resistance allows for the energy to dynamically shift on its own. In doing nothing, everything happens. Very interesting perspective and philosophy, yes? And so, in terms of freedom in your life, where you are finding your greatest resistances are the opportunities that you have to be curious and ask, what is it that I'm resisting here? Not because you're trying to constantly fix yourself, but because you are reframing your entire relationship with resistance and how you approach challenge and how you even view the platform of your life. My friend, if there is one gift I could reflect to you today, it would be that the magic is found in the mundane. The magic is found in the mundane. There's a paradox for us. It's not a resistance and a shedding of what is mundane, what is perceived as mundane. It is seeing that the magic is right there. How can I bring that into an even more practical way? Some of us look to lean into esoteric or magical concepts as a way of escaping the moment. But I find that a deep embrace of the moment, no matter how boring or repetitive it seems to be, contains within it the pathway to your deepest understandings, transformations, and transmutations. We can read all the spiritual texts we want, do all the spiritual practices, this, but the actual transmutation comes through the application of these understandings, of these knowings in the moments you find yourself in. Because otherwise it's just avoidance. Whatever is showing up in your life is the altar, the stage for your greatest moment. You wouldn't be focused right here, right now, if this wasn't the most precise and resonant moment for you to be in. Not because you must learn lessons or change or you're being punished, but because this represents the leading edge of possibility and, let's call it, evolution, although I have an asterisk next to that word, the leading edge of evolution, of understanding of new insights, things that have never been done or seen before for you as a direct experience of source understanding itself through the lens of your unique universe. And this is why each moment, in a sense, is sacred, and whatever you are facing is the act of love, the opportunity of love you have for yourself and for the whole universe. And even in the most simple tasks, even in washing dishes, we can transmute. We can transform this world. It's not something that I am saying just from theory. It's something that I have put into practice in my life. And so I'm sharing with you what I found, because I was very displeased at the idea that magic would be found in the mundane when I first started exploring this path as a concept back in 2017. Very displeased. I liked the fantastical. I still like the fantastical. But I understood that my experience of the fantastical was emerging. This is the alchemy, the paradox you will find me pointing to again and again. Is whatever you are seeking is available to you right now, and the materials you have to receive it are right within you and being danced with you in the play of life as you're having it right now. And whatever you don't prefer, okay, because this doesn't mean that what you're experiencing is something you always prefer. Whatever you don't prefer still represents an opportunity to have a near instantaneous transformation and transmutation. I've had this channel up for about 7 years. For many years, maybe had a few hundred views on a video. And when it genuinely didn't matter how many people watched or tuned in, it was more about resonance than it was about having some kind of external specific thing fulfilled. The external reflected a, let's just say, growth that I once was grasping at, and then I embraced what was, and suddenly it shifted. Now, I'm not saying that the way to game the system is to want something and then pretend you don't want it and then you get it. The resonant truth for me is that it didn't matter. From a very wide perspective, it didn't matter if the way this was happening was through specific YouTube or these kinds of videos or not. I just understood What was my resonant joy to embody, and how, and then I am that. And so whatever it is that you want to put out there, right? Whatever freedom you want to express, whether it's in music or this, I'm going to invite you to invite your mind out of complexity and thinking and planning and thinking there's steps to do, and bring this to your heart. Remember the thing we said earlier, bring this to your heart, and then invite that part of you to be, let's say, the leader of this experience. You get to work with your mind, you get to work with your other systems, work with your logic, but the logic doesn't run the show. If you understand, work with the logic doesn't run the show. And invite all these parts of yourself to get curious about the most effective way to go about what you want to do. I'm going to close today's conversation with this thought here that came through to me. Success is inevitable when you've simply decided what your life is. And what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if you write a book or make a channel or become a rock star or become a teacher or be a parent or start a shop or work for someone or have a cozy life. What thrills you is your path to freedom. And there's no one else, not myself or anyone else, that will directly tell you what your path is, because it's up to you to listen to the stirrings of the inner voice and then get curious enough to embody the path your way. What anyone else has done or not done is their business. It may show you some ideas of what's possible, like things you can clip out for your inner vision board, but that doesn't need to define what's possible and probable for you. So, my friend, at this time of fantastic possibilities, I appreciate having this conversation together. I appreciate you. And I invite you, if you like, to check out the description link. This year will be a year where there is much on my end. I can feel experiences, community cultivation. There's the flow book in the description as well. This is a book that I pulled through around 2017. One of the most powerful tools I have. You may have it. You can sign up for my newsletter and get it. There's a few other places to get it. You can send me an email and I'll send you a copy. This tool is one that will assist you in heightening your connection with your inner voice, so to speak. And in all cases, my friend, I deeply appreciate you. Deeply appreciate you. And I do look forward to the next time and each time we choose to connect. You awesome being, you.